Ever wondered why economists obsess over GDP? How does it affect you? Let's delve into these questions. Gross domestic product, or GDP, is a term that's thrown around quite a bit, especially when we're talking about the economy. But what exactly does it mean? In a nutshell, GDP is a measure of the total economic output of a country. It represents the market value of all goods and services produced over a specific time period within a country's borders. So, why is it important? Well, GDP is a key indicator of a nation's economic health. It helps us understand whether an economy is expanding or contracting. It's a tool that governments and businesses use to make important decisions. But it's not just for economists or policymakers. GDP impacts everyone. It affects the job market, your purchasing power, and even your standard of living. So, in essence, GDP is a snapshot of a country's economic health. But how do we calculate it? Calculating GDP might seem like a daunting task, but fear not, it's simpler than it sounds. Let's break it down. Essentially, there are three ways to calculate GDP. First up, the production approach. This method totals up the market value of all goods and services produced within a nation's borders during a specific time period. It's like taking a snapshot of a country's economic activity. Next, we have the income approach. This method accounts for all the income generated by that production: wages, profits, rents, and taxes. It's about tracking the flow of cash. The third method is the expenditure approach, which sums up all the spending on goods and services produced within a country. It's about where the money goes, from the consumer's pocket to the market. Now let's talk about nominal and real GDP. Nominal GDP is the raw economic output of a country without considering inflation or deflation. It's the face value of the economy. On the other hand, real GDP adjusts for changes in price levels, giving us a more accurate picture of economic growth over time. It's the economy's value in terms of purchasing power. Each approach offers a unique perspective, and together they give us a comprehensive picture of a nation's economic health. So that's how we calculate GDP. But what does it tell us about our economy? GDP is more than just a figure. It's a story of a nation's economic journey. Delving deeper, GDP's implications are far-reaching. It's through GDP per capita, a measure that divides the GDP by the numbers of a country's inhabitants, that we can compare living standards across nations. A higher GDP per capita typically signifies a higher standard of living. This is because when a country's economic output is high, it often means that jobs are plentiful, industries are thriving, and consumers are spending. But why are high GDP growth rates desirable? Well, they're often seen as a sign of a healthy, expanding economy. When GDP growth is robust, businesses can afford to hire more people, pay higher wages, and invest in new technologies. GDP also influences public policy. Governments use it to plan their budgets, set fiscal and monetary policies, and allocate resources. For example, a country with a growing GDP might invest more in infrastructure, education, or healthcare. Yet, it's important to remember that GDP has its limitations. It doesn't account for income inequality, environmental impact, or the quality of life. A country might have a high GDP, but if the wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, or if the growth is achieved at the expense of the environment, the overall well-being of the population may not improve. While GDP is a crucial economic indicator, it doesn't paint the full picture of the nation's well-being. But it's a good starting point for understanding a country's economic narrative.